Representative Dale Kooyenga and Milwaukee Teachers Union Executive Director Lauren Baker clashed over the future of public education in Milwaukee on Tuesday afternoon. The debate, hosted by Marquette University's law school, centered around the question of how to best reform the lowest performing schools in the Milwaukee Public School system.
What I think we need in Milwaukee is two things. First of all, we all need to be open to change. We all have to be open to change. Because I'm a conservative that believes that there's social injustice in Milwaukee. There's a significant amount of social injustice in the city of Milwaukee. And the great majority of that social injustice can come right back to our school system. Number two is the current rhetoric is not working. The current animosity across all systems, I say all systems across choice and charter and public schools, the fist, the chants, the dialogue on both sides is not conducive to what's really going to make the most change in our community.
I hope that what we come out of today with is a vision for the kinds of schools we want our children to be in, and that vision really encompasses both the kind of learning that we want to see in our schools, the kind of environment we want our children to be in that learning, the kind of resources we want wrapped around those schools, and the kind of governance that makes that happen.
Kooyenga passionately defended a plan he and State Senator Alberta Darling designed that created a special opportunity schools district to address the problems at MPS. The intent of the Opportunity Schools plan was to appoint an education czar with the independence and authority to take dramatic action, identify the lowest performing schools, and completely overhaul those schools to improve educational outcomes in Milwaukee.
When you have high schools that graduate 50% of their students, those other 50% aren't economically viable. And so they find themselves in this world, this underworld, this black market of using women and selling drugs. And it creates violence. This is not an economic issue. This is a humanitarian issue.
Kooyenga noted that the union does not oppose at least one form of school choice, public school open enrollment.
The biggest choice program in the state of Wisconsin is open enrollment. It's public school to public school. And we're at a point in Milwaukee now where 80% of the children in Milwaukee are exercising some kind of choice.
Baker talked about how the teaching profession has been vilified, how unfairly MPS is treated under the equalization aid formula, and how MPS educates a more challenging group of students.
Milwaukee Public Schools does teach a more challenging group of kids. The Milwaukee Public Schools on average is dealing with 22% special ed children, and so we got to make sure we're not comparing apples and chimpanzees when we're comparing.
Kooyenga noted that reforming schools is a bipartisan issue, reminding the audience that President Obama recently signed federal legislation requiring reform of the lowest 5% performing schools. Despite the president's recent call to action, Representative Kooyenga shared the reason why local legislators are reluctant to publicly demand change at MPS.
But this is so painful because I want to get in the room with people in the Democratic Party and have these discussions, and I have. I'm not going to say names, but there's a lot of them. And what they say is, Dale, you're doing the right thing, keep doing what you're doing, but you ought to understand the politics in the city. The politics in the city is that if I'm an elected official on the board or on the city council or in the mayor's office or on the school board, and if I stand up for change in education, any change, they are going to come and get me. That is a fact, and they're scared of you. They're scared of the teachers' union.
Baker said meaningful reforms can be done within the current governance format, repeatedly calling the Opportunity Schools plan an unnecessary takeover of MPS. Baker believes the MPS board can fix MPS with community schools.
What has been a model working in urban school districts for the last 25 years in this country, there are over 6 million kids, who are in community schools.
Kooyenga insisted his reform plan was not a takeover.
And so what this does is it allows someone else to say, Superintendent Driver, we could focus on these 3 or 5 schools. We're going to turn them around. And when they're turned around, they go back to MPS.
And the audience was left with at least one unanswered question. If the union and education establishment in Milwaukee can accomplish reforms within the current governance format, why haven't they done so already?
I am not happy with the status quo. This is one giant Milwaukee community. And we can't be happy of where we're at with our crime, with our poverty, our education, and the bottom line is we have to try new ideas.
For the MacIver Institute, I'm Jen Healy.